Hello. Want to rap a little bit. It occurred to me that I've made a few videos now, but I've not done anything uh, besides mention the man's name uh, in uh, the man who kind of inspired me to create this channel, the man whose name I've taken from a sketch of his, and that is, sorry, it looks like I have no chin. There we go. And that is the late, great Lenny Bruce. So I want to rap a little bit about Lenny Bruce, and seeing as how I'm trying to distinguish myself from all the other voices on YouTube by framing things through a libertarian lens and kind of bringing a Lenny Bruce shtick to things. So I want to just rap a little bit about him. Also, full disclosure, I now have one subscriber, so I am just bought and sold, and I'm just going to be putting out tripe now. Uh, no, that might have been a mercy sub. I don't know what the deal is, so we will see what happens there. Anyways, so, just who was Lenny Bruce? Sorry, let me adjust the camera here. So just who the heck was Lenny Bruce, and why is he so important? Well, Lenny Bruce was a Jewish comic, is there any other kind, of the 40s. Sorry, I've got a bit of a headache. Well, 40s to 60s, so yeah. But so Lenny Bruce was a comedian who essentially redefined what stand-up comedy is. Before Lenny Bruce, comics were people who would get up and tell jokes that had been written for them by other people. They would buy and sell jokes, and all their jokes were very much, gosh, it's a hot day out. How hot is it? Like, you know. See, I didn't even have a punchline for it. That's how shitty it all was. But Lenny Bruce, along with a handful of others, Lenny Bruce set about changing that. He changed the things that were acceptable to say on a nightclub stage. This is root beer. I actually don't care for beer much, except the root variety. Anyways, so Lenny Bruce changed the things that were said on a nightclub stage. And the importance of this does remain today. And I see it every time. I think there was a guy in Scotland recently who made some joke on Twitter and like got fucking arrested or some shit. The spirit of Lenny Bruce is free speech. So that's why Lenny Bruce is so important. He would get up on a nightclub stage and he would talk about sex. He would talk about banging some chick and not pulling out. Yeah, really. In, 1950s. 50s, 60s. And he would talk about race during a time of, of, uh, what's the word that I can't think of right now? Segregation by law. I know someone, if anyone's watching this, is just screaming it at me. I just can't think of it right now. But he talked about race. He talked about sex, and he talked a lot about religion. And that was where he got into trouble. He talked a lot about religion. He talked a lot about the Catholic Church. And so he got busted a lot. He got arrested. He would get hauled in. He's the first, only, and last, to my knowledge, comedian to get charged with obscenity. And in Lenny Bruce, I see so much, and I should say rather, and in today, I see so much of Lenny Bruce that it's more scary than it is funny. Today we have this, and in fact I saw a meme that summarized it perfectly. It said that, it's sad that the generation that championed anti-censorship is now championing political correctness. And that is pretty much true. Lenny Bruce was all about not censor, was anti-censorship. Lenny Bruce, Lenny Bruce and people like him was all about ideas and discussing things that you don't talk about. Shh. It's not polite to talk about that. People aren't ready for that. If there's anyone who the phrase ahead of his time fits, it's Lenny Bruce. He would get up, he had a bit that he did with this jazz guitarist, Eric Miller, this black guy, called How to Relax Your Colored Friends at Parties. And he would get up and in the bit he plays this just loaded, just completely drunk this liberal white guy who's talking to this black guy, and he's groping for conversational commonalities and asking him if he knows Aunt Jemima, and trying to offer him fried chicken and watermelon. And the people who were not laughing, naturally, were the white liberals. Everyone else was loving it. He also, rather famously, there was this comic, Dick Gregory. In fact, I believe he's still alive. But he's talking to this friend of Lenny's one day, and he says, yeah, let's go see him. He's, at this club right now. So they walk in, and Lenny locks eyes with Gregory, and he says, are there any niggers here tonight? And the whole crowd just, and he goes on saying the word nigger, and then he uses every other racial slur, kike, mick, greaseball, jigaboo, everything that he could think of, and then brings it to the head. He says, the point is that the words that we use only have the power we give them because we suppress them. Now, unfortunately, we've still not come around. Unfortunately, we still have words that we're not allowed to say. And so Lenny Bruce, to me, is free speech. And he died for that. And so that's why, everyone has, and he even did a bit on this, he didn't have many television appearances because he was so controversial, but one of his only television appearances he did make, he said, everyone has things that offend them. Segregation offends me. And so he was one of the very first, as a matter of fact, entertainers who was an integrationist and said, hey, this is horseshit. What is this nonsense about blacks having to be at a separate water fountain, right? And this is a conversation on statism that I'll have to have another time, but what many people don't realize, what these SJW types don't realize, is that the same government that they look to solve these problems, real or imagined, are the ones who created these problems to begin with, and there's no better example of that than the segregated South. And even back in the 20s during the Prohibition era, I saw this show about this a while ago. It talked all about the war between the mob and the Klan, and that was through the lens of bootlegging and the 19th Amendment. Did I just say the 19th Amendment? Now I'm questioning my knowledge and wondering if I just referenced the wrong amendment in regards to prohibition. And I probably did. Anyways, so it talked all about, I don't know why my hand's up. It talked all about the war between the Klan and the mob during the era of Prohibition, and how the Klan was anti-immigrant and obviously anti-black, and how the mob, their money was all in, not all in, but their money, a lot of their money was in alcohol, and in those nightclubs, and again, this holds true in the 1920s, and it held true in the 60s in the segregated South. Again, segregated by way of statist law. At night, in these clubs, blacks and whites mixed and mingled. In the 20s, during Prohibition, in the speakeasies, blacks and whites and men and women mixed and mingled. So it was all about the state. All about, and I said this to someone recently, and she goes, well, what was the skin color of the people who were running the government? And that is so irrelevant. You know why it's irrelevant? We've had tyrants, we've had despots, that was the word I was looking for, dictators of all skin colors and all ethnicities. So really, you're showing your racism when you say that. But right now in South Africa, the head of state, black, and hello, South Africa, most of the government, fairly certain, haven't looked into it, but most of the government, I'm about 98% certain, is black. South Africa right now is facing a white genocide. So this whole bullshit about the color of someone's skin, no, it's about power. That's what it's all about. And that's why, as libertarians, we wish to be free. Freedom is the driving core, the core principle, the driving force. Would you rather have your driving force be freedom or some morality that, how possibly moral can it be if you have to have it enforced by an oligarchy? But at any rate, now I've digressed off the topic of Lenny Bruce, and we'll get into all that another time. But I just wanted to have a little bit of a primer about the importance of Lenny Bruce. Lenny Bruce, unfortunately, was a martyr for free speech. And so, and again, the same person said to me one time, hate speech should not be allowed. But you don't understand. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of what free speech is and what the First Amendment is for. It's not for flowery language. It's for shit that you hear and go, ooh, damn, I don't think you should fucking say that. In fact, the Supreme Court said, yeah, you can say whatever the fuck you want, just as long as you're not inciting violence. Like, oh, I don't know. Say there was a group marching in the streets chanting for the deaths of police officers, and then say police officers were like routinely killed basically every fucking day. Okay, not every day, it's an oversimplification. But then that group just wringed their hands and just sat on their hands and didn't say anything. That is not protected speech, calling for the immediate death of people and overthrow of government. But of course, that would never happen. Anyways, I strayed from the topic at hand, so we'll get into that another time. The point of this video was to say, introduce to the consciousness that is my YouTube channel who Lenny Bruce is, why he was important, and why everyone should know who he is, and kind of get a better grasp of what it is that we got going on here on this channel in the spirit of free speech. Again, Lenny Bruce. Anyways, that's all for now, and happy Friday.